Hello, my safeguarding families around the world. It's Jeff again, and today I've just come to discuss a very serious topic pertaining, children's safety. Um, I've been home for the last couple of weeks. I've not been really at work, but that does not mean that I have not been safeguarding children. Like I've always said, safeguarding children and young people is a 24/7 hours job, and therefore I continue to safeguard children, including mine. But nonetheless, while I was at home 4 days ago, that's on the 17th of, just the other day, there was a Prime Minister's questions in the House of Commons that was live in the UK, of course, for those that doesn't know. And the leader of the opposition, Sir Keith Starmer from Labour, brought some very tough questions to the government led by Boris Johnson from the Conservative. And this really, I couldn't just let it go. I had to bring it. I had to, record this, on BBC. And so, because this is what safeguarding is all about. I mean, the topics that they were discussing definitely is about things that really are serious. And discussions like this do happen often, especially in the Commons, where, of course, legislations and guidance is derived from. So it's critical. When I saw this, I thought about you, my safeguarding families, and I thought it is necessary for me to bring these issues so that we can actually look at them and discuss and hear what Sir Keith Starmer really is trying to propose the government to ensure they deliver. So in a nutshell, they were talking about the atrocities that young girls and women in general suffer from perpetrators, and they were saying that really how this is being handled here in the United Kingdom is literally disgraceful. So it's just about almost 10-12 minutes recording. But it's fantastic. I would just like you to stay focused and just listen to the questions that Keith Starmer is really throwing to the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister is fantastically answering them. And my prayer is that these things can be looked at and dealt with. I mean, among, these things, some of the things that they're talking about are about many young girls and women generally don't feel safe in the streets of the United Kingdom, particularly at night. Why should this be? I mean, they live here. This is their country. They should be able to feel safe regardless of whether it's during the day or at night. I mean, police are there and all that. So really, these are serious questions. If you don't know what's happening, basically, this is these questions came out. Sir Keith Starmer is throwing these questions as a result of the unfortunate death, or rather murder, of one of the young girls that passed on, Sarah Evran. So it's really a sad issue and case. Another question that Sir Keith Starmer is throwing up is that many women and girls who are subject to these atrocious acts do not feel that they need to come forward and, and say these things have happened to them. Maybe the big question is why? Why? So these are the questions that the leader of the opposition from Labour is throwing to the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. And probably there's a lot of things that we can, bring out from why women and young girls feel that they're not even bothered. They don't feel like it's necessary for them to come forward and report these issues. Could be things like they're not listened to. Nobody believes them. So these are serious questions. Another one was many women who report do not see their cases go anywhere. only a few perpetrators are prosecuted. So you can imagine. So if, they take the bold step of reporting these issues, but nonetheless, they know the case is not going to go anywhere. So they say, so if it happens again to somebody or a close person that they know, they'd be like, what's the point? I reported mine, didn't go anywhere. Nobody was prosecuted. Nobody's in jail for what they did to me. And certainly, maybe they're not going to do it to you. So these are serious questions that Sir Keir Starmer is asking the Prime Minister, so that at least the United Kingdom can debate this and put priorities right. They talked about sentencing and that this needs to be, toughened so that, perpetrators can really know, if I was to commit this crime and, be nicked, I'm going to spend years in jail. But if sentences are going to be 7 years for, abusing women, molesting women, no. There's got to be a better way of putting an end to this. And it's by tougher sentences and ensuring that perpetrators know that if they are nicked, they're going to spend years behind bar. This is it, really. So I would just like to invite you really to listen to this 10-minute clip. It's a fantastic clip. It would be nice to hear your comments after you've listened to this clip. Please share this with young girls, share it with women, share it with fathers, with mothers, share it with family, share it in WhatsApp groups so that people can know that these things are actually being discussed. So these things can happen, and when people do discussions like this and things on social media, they do have a difference. And like we've always said, the job of safeguarding young people must be everyone's. So it's not just in Parliament. Safeguarding children has to start from you, has to start from me. You cannot wait for the next person to safeguard a child for you. You have to do it. So you do your part, I do my part, and then the community will be safe. Let's have a look.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join the Prime Minister in his comments about St. Patrick's Day? My thoughts, and I'm sure those across the whole of the House, are with the family and friends of Sarah Everard, who will be suffering unspeakable grief. There are 5 words that will stick with us for a very long time. She was just walking home. Sometimes a tragedy is so shocking, it demands both justice and change. The Stephen Lawrence case showed the poison of structural and institutional racism. The James Bolger case made us question the nature of our society and the safety of our children. Now the awful events of the last week have lifted a veil on the epidemic of violence against women and girls. This must also be a watershed moment to change how we as a society treat women and girls and how we prevent and end sexual violence and harassment. I believe that if we work together, we can achieve that. And the questions I ask today are in that spirit. So first, does the Prime Minister agree that this must be a turning point in how we tackle violence against women and girls?
Mr. Speaker, yes, I do. And I associate myself fully with the remarks the Right Honourable Gentleman has made about the appalling murder of Sarah Everard. I'm sure that those emotions are shared in this House and around the country. And that event has triggered a reaction that I believe is wholly justified and understandable. And of course, we in government are doing everything that we can. We're investing in the Crown Prosecution Service, trying to speed up the law. We're changing the law on domestic violence and many, many other things. But I think that he is right, frankly, that unless and until we have a change in our culture that acknowledges and understands that women currently do not feel they are being heard, we will not fix this problem. And that is what we must do. We need a cultural and social change in attitudes to redress the balance, Mr. Speaker, and that is what I believe all politicians must now work together to achieve.
Keir Starmer. Can I thank the Prime Minister for that answer? In that spirit, can I turn to the practical challenges we face if we are collectively to rise to this moment? The first challenge, Mr. Speaker, is that many women and girls feel unsafe on our streets, particularly at night. What's needed is legal protection. And that's why we've called for a specific new law on street harassment and also for toughening the law on stalking. Both, I think, are absolutely vital if we're going to make meaningful change in the everyday experiences of women and girls. So can the Prime Minister commit to take both of these measures forward?
Mr. Speaker, we're always happy to look at new proposals. What we're already doing is introducing tougher sanctions on stalkers, or that's already been brought in, and we're bringing in new measures to make the streets safer. Of course, that's the right thing to do, Mr. Speaker. Last night there was a bill before the House on police crime and sentencing, which did a lot to protect women and girls. We did a lot to protect women and girls, and it would have been good in a cross-party way, Mr. Speaker, to have had the support of the opposition.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, I'll come to last night's bill later, but it did say a lot more about protecting statues than it did about protecting women. But let me, if I may, given the gravity of the situation, continue in the spirit so far. And I thank the Prime Minister for his answer. The next challenge, practical challenge, is that many women and girls who are subjected to sexual violence do not feel confident to come forward and report what has happened to them. 9 out of 10 don't do so. We have to improve the support that's provided for victims. The Victims Commissioner published a report last month with 32 recommendations about this. This week, Labour produced a detailed survivor support plan. And 5 years ago, I introduced a private member's bill with cross-party support for a victims law to give legally enforceable rights to victims. The Shadow Victims Minister, my honourable friend from Hove, has tabled a similar victims bill that's before Parliament now. It's ready to go. All it needs is political will to act. So will the Prime Minister commit now, not just to the idea of victims law, which I think he does support, but to a tight timetable, ideally 6 months or so, to actually implement such a law?
Prime Minister.
As I say, Mr. Speaker, we're very happy to look at new proposals from all sides of the House on this issue, and that's why we're conducting an end-to-end review of the law on rape and how it works, and investing in the criminal justice system to speed up cases and give women and girls the confidence that they need. And I think that the point he makes about victims and their need to feel confident in coming forward is absolutely right, and that's why we put £100 million so far into the services for dealing with violence against women and girls, particularly independent domestic violence advisors, independent sexual violence advisors, Mr. Speaker. I don't pretend that these are the entire solution. They are part of the solution, but it is also vital, Mr. Speaker, that we have long-term cultural, societal change to deal with this issue.
Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree with the Prime Minister on that last point. Can I gently remind him that for 10 years this government has been promising a victims law. I think it's been in his party's last 3 manifestos. It still hasn't materialised. We don't, Prime Minister, need more reviews, consultation strategies. The conversations our Shadow Minister is having with government, constructive conversations, are exactly the same conversations as I had 5 years ago. Constructive conversations. We just need now to get on with it. But let me press on with the practical challenges, because the next challenge is this, that for many women and girls who do come forward to report sexual violence, no criminal charges are brought. Only 1.5% of rapes reported to the police lead to a prosecution. Put the other way, 98.5% of reported rapes don't lead to a prosecution. That's a shocking statistic. I do appreciate that efforts are being made to improve the situation. But can the Prime Minister tell us what is he going to do about this, not in a few years' time, not next year, but now?
Prime Minister.
He's entirely right, Mr. Speaker, in the sense that I agree with him. One of the first things I said when I became Prime Minister was that I believed that the prosecution rates for rape were a disgrace in this in this country, and we need to sort it out. And yes, that's why we're investing in confidence-building measures such as ISVAs and IDVAs, and investing in the CPS and trying to speed up the process of the law to give people the confidence their cases will be heard in due time. But we're also doing what we can to toughen the penalties for those men, and I'm afraid it is overwhelmingly men, who commit these crimes. And I think it would have been a good thing if last night the whole House could have voted for tougher sentences for those who commit sexual and violence offences and stop people, Mr. Speaker, from being released early. And in that collegiate spirit, I would ask him to work together with us.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, I was Director of Public Prosecution for 5 years and spent every day prosecuting serious crime, including terrorism, sexual violence and rape. So I really don't need lectures about how to enforce the criminal law. But walking on through the system, as many women and girls have to do, and facing up to the challenges that we need to face up to as a house, the next challenge is the point the Prime Minister just referenced, and that's the sentences for rape and sexual violence, because they need to be toughened. Let me give the House 3 examples. John Patrick, convicted of raping a 13-year-old girl, he received a 7-year sentence. Orlando and Constanzo, convicted of raping a woman in a nightclub, they received a 7.5-year sentence. James Reeve, convicted of raping a 7-year-old girl, he received a 9-year sentence. Does the Prime Minister agree we need urgently to look at this and to toughen sentences for rape and serious sexual violence?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, wouldn't it be a wonderful thing if there was a bill going through the House of Commons which did exactly that? Wouldn't it be a wonderful thing if there were measures to defend women and girls from violent and sex criminals? Wouldn't it be a wonderful thing if there was a bill before the House to have tougher sentences for child murderers and tougher punishments for sex offenders? That, I think, would be a fine thing, Mr. Speaker. As it happens, there is such a bill before the House. I think it would be a great thing if the right honourable gentleman actually had voted for it. He still has time. This bill is still before the House. He can lift his opposition. They actually voted against it, Mr. Speaker, on a 3-line whip, and I think it was crazy.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, he mentions the bill last night. That provided for longer maximum sentences for damaging a memorial than the sentences imposed in the 3 cases of rape I've referred the House to. All of those sentences less than 10 years. I thank the Prime Minister for providing me with the best examples of why the priorities in his bill were so wrong. And nothing in that bill would have increased the length of sentence in any of those rape cases. Nothing in that bill. But let me try to return to the constructive spirit, because I think that is demanded of all of us. If this House came together on the points raised today, and there's been agreement across the dispatch boxes, it would make a real difference to victims of crime. This week, Labour published a 10-point plan. We published a victims law. In coming days, we're going to publish amendments in relation to the criminal justice system to make it work better. Now, I don't expect the Prime Minister to agree with all of this, and frankly, I don't care if this becomes a government bill or Conservative legislation. All I care about is whether we make progress. So will the Prime Minister meet me, the Shadow Home Secretary, the Honourable Member for Birmingham Yardley, and victims groups who've spent many years campaigning on this, so that we can really and truly make this a turning point?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid that he does, and I'm grateful to him for the collegiate speech, the way in which he's addressing this, and the way in which he's reaching out across the chamber. I think that's entirely right in the circumstances. But I do think that he should not misrepresent what the bill was trying to do. The average sentence for rape is already 9 years, 9 months, as he knows full well. The maximum sentence is already life. What we were trying to do is stiffen the sentences for a variety of offences to protect women and girls and others. And that is entirely the right thing to do, Mr. Speaker. And we will go on with our agenda, delivering on the people's priorities, rolling out more police, 7,000 we have already, investing in ISVAs and IDVAs, and doing our utmost to accelerate the processes, the grinding processes of the criminal justice system, which, as he rightly says, are such a deterrent to women in coming forward to complain as they rightly should. But until we sort out that fundamental problem, until women feel that they are being heard and their voices are being heard and their complaints are being addressed by society, we will not fix this problem. And I warmly welcome what he suggests about wanting to fix it together, and I hope that in that spirit he can bring himself to vote for the tougher sentences that we've set out.
Well, I hope you've listened to the clip and you've enjoyed the questions that are being thrown in the House of Commons. My prayer is that the last thing that Keith Starmer has requested the Prime Minister is to actually meet with him, so that him and other few professionals there can sit down and discuss and arrange and make plans for the way forward about these issues. And I think they are critical issues that we need to put in place to ensure that guidances, laws, policies, and legislations are in place to ensure that our girls and women are safe, regardless of whether it is during the day or at night. Otherwise, people who commit atrocities like those ones need to belong to a place called jail for years. Please do not forget to share this message. Put your comment down there. Most importantly, share it. But definitely, please do subscribe to Safeguarding Watoto channel. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. We want to appreciate you and to thank you. And we hope to see you in our next video very soon. Nonetheless, in the meantime, let it be known, let it be told, that safeguarding children and young people must be everyone's responsibility. I'm Jeff from Safeguarding Watoto.